The kingdom of my divine will in the midst of creatures. Book of Heaven, Volume 35, Part 10. December 28th, 1937. Just as redemption served to rescue the dwellings, the kingdom of the divine will shall serve to place in safety the one who had created them, and to return the dwellings to him. How in each act done in the divine will, God creates his divine life. I kept thinking about the divine will. How many touching scenes before my mind! A Jesus who cries, who prays, who suffers, because he wants to be life of each creature. And a crowd of crippled children, some blind, some mute, some lame, some others paralyzed, and others covered with wounds such as to arouse pity. And dear Jesus, with a love that he alone can have, running now to one, now to another, drawing them close to himself, pressing them to his heart, touching them with his creative hands in order to heal them, and whispering to them so very gently to their hearts, "My child, I love you. Receive my love, and give me yours, and I will heal you by way of love." My Jesus, my dear life, how much you love us! Now, while I felt suffocated by his love, as he was blowing his burning breath upon me, surprising me, he told me, "Daughter of my love, let me pour myself out, for I can no longer contain myself. How hard it is to love, and not to be loved in return. Not having one to whom to tell my surprises of love is the most inexpressible pain for our Supreme Being. Therefore, listen to me. You must know that I came upon earth in order to rescue my dwellings. Man is my dwelling, which I had formed with so much love, and in which, to make it worthy of me, my power and the creative art of my wisdom had concurred. This dwelling was a prodigy of our love and of our divine hands. Now, by withdrawing from our will, our dwelling became unstable and darkened, a dwelling for enemies and thieves. What sorrow for us! So my life down here served to return, to restore, and to rescue this dwelling, which we had formed for ourselves with so much love. It was ours, too. It was befitting to save it, to be able to inhabit it again. Therefore, in order to save it, I used all possible and imaginable remedies. I exposed my very life in order to fortify it and cement it again. I shed all my blood in order to wash it from all the filth. And with my death, I wanted to give it life again, to make it worthy to receive once again, as its inhabitant, the one who had created it. Now, having used all the means in order to save our dwelling, it was also decorous for us to place in safety the king who would reside in it. Our love had remained hampered halfway through its race, as though suspended and obstructed in its course. Therefore, the kingdom of our will shall place in safety that Fiat which had been rejected by the creature, to allow its entrance into its dwelling, so as to let it reign and dominate as the sovereign it is. Saving the dwellings would not be a work worthy of our creative wisdom if we left the one who is supposed to reside in them wandering around outside with no kingdom and no dominion. To save the dwellings without saving oneself, unable to inhabit the dwellings that were rescued, would be absurd, as if we did not have enough power to save ourselves. This will never be. If we had the power to save our creative work, we will also have the power to rescue our own life within our work. Oh, yes, we will have our kingdom, and we will make unheard of prodigies to have it. Our love will accomplish its course. It will not remain halfway. It will get rid of the shackles, and will continue its race, bringing balm to the wounds of the human will. It will adorn these dwellings with divine ornaments, and with its empire it will call our Fiat to dwell and reign, giving it all the rights that are due to it. If the kingdom of my will were not certain, why fix and restore the dwellings? Ah, my daughter, you cannot comprehend well what it means not to do our will. All our rights are taken away from us. Many of our divine lives remain suffocated. Our love was and is so great that in each act of the creature we wanted to create ourselves in order to be loved, to be known, and to have a continuous exchange of life between us and the creatures. But it is impossible to do this without our will. It alone has the power and the virtue of adapting the creature to receive our divine life, and to put our love on the way, so as to multiply us in the act of the creature. You must know that in each act she does in our will, an irresistible force calls us, and we look at her. We reflect ourselves in her, and with irresistible love, we create our life. And if you knew what it means to create our life, there is such a great display of love that in our emphasis of love we say, ah, the creature has allowed us to form our life in her act. We feel the equality with our love, sanctity, and glory, and we anxiously await the continuous repetition of her acts in our will, in order to repeat our life, to have in her act ourselves, loving and glorifying ourselves. Only then do we fulfill the true purpose of the creation, that everything would serve us. Even the littlest act of the creature serves to repeat our life and to make a display of our love. Therefore, the living in our volition will be everything for us, and everything for the creature. Fiat. January 2nd, 1938. In the divine will, miseries and weaknesses turn into the most beautiful conquests. All that is done in the divine volition is first formed in heaven. The whole celestial court takes part in it, and it descends for the good of the earth. I continue my flight in the divine volition, and I was thinking to myself, the living in the divine will seems incredible. How can one live in it if the miseries and the weaknesses that one feels are so many, and the encounters, the circumstances? But as much as one feels them, it seems that the divine will wants to invest everything with its light and burn everything up with its love, in such a way that nothing other than its will and love must exist between itself and the creature. But while I was thinking this, my dear Jesus, who is always on the lookout to spot and see whether there is anything in me which is not his will, told me, "My good daughter, my jealousy for one who lives in my will is such that I do not tolerate a single thought, or a weakness, or anything else which does not have life in it. Now you must know that in order to begin to live in my will, it takes a decision on the part of God, and a firm decision to live in it on the part of the creature. Now, this decision is animated by a new life, by a divine strength, such as to render the creature unconquerable by any evil or circumstance of life. This decision is not subject to changes, because when we decide, we do not bother dealing with kids who make a joke of their decisions, but with those whom we know must persevere. Therefore, we give of our own, so that this creature may not fall short. It may be that she feels the miseries, the evils, the weaknesses, but this means nothing, because in the face of the power and sanctity of my will, these things die. They feel the pain of death, and they flee. More so, since these miseries are not a birth from the human will, because her human will is sunken inside my will, and therefore cannot will anything but what I myself want. And many times my will even uses these miseries to make of them the most beautiful conquests, and lay its life upon them, forming its kingdom, extending its dominion, and converting the weaknesses into victories and triumphs. Indeed, with one who lives in it, all things must serve my will, as the most beautiful love that the creature gives to he who forms her life, almost like the stones, bricks, and rubble serve to the one who wants to build for himself a beautiful house. Now, you must know that before she comes to live in our will, we purify everything. We cover and hide everything inside our love, in such a way that we must see nothing but love in this creature. When our love has hidden everything, even the miseries, then does she take her place inside our will. Even more, every time she emits her acts, first she is purified, and then our will invests her, and makes of her whatever it wants. My daughter, in my will there are neither judgments nor judges, because the sanctity, the order, the purity, and the utility of our ways is such and so great that all must lower their foreheads and adore whatever we do. Therefore do not lose peace. Do not be concerned with the miseries and circumstances, but leave them at the mercy of my will, so that it may make of them its portents of love. After this he added, My daughter, everything that the creature does in my divine will is first formed in heaven, in the eternal day which knows no night time. The entire celestial court is already aware that a creature of the earth has taken refuge in her celestial fatherland, which is already hers. But to do what? To enter into the center of the Fiat and call its power and its creative virtue, in order to give it the opportunity to operate in her act. Oh, with how much love she is welcomed, not only by the divine volition, but also by the sacrosanct Trinity. They draw her so close to themselves, pour their balm over her act, and blow their breath into it with their creative power, forming such great wonders out of that act, that the whole of heaven feels such joy and happiness as to make the celestial regions resound with harmonious voices. Thank you, thank you, for you have given us the great honor of being spectators of your will operating in the act of the creature. So heaven is flooded with new joys and new contentments, in such a way that all remain obliged and grateful, and call her our welcomed. This more than celestial creature feels loved back by God with double love. She feels inundated with new seas of grace, and just as she rises up to heaven as the bearer of her acts, letting God form wonders in them, so does she descend again, becoming the bearer of all that God has operated in her act, flooding the earth and investing the whole creation, so that all may receive the glory and the joy of the marvels which the divine Fiat has operated in the act of the creature. There is no greater homage, love, or glory that she can give us than to let us do whatever we want in her acts. We can do the greatest wonders without anybody lending us anything, and even without anyone telling us anything, just as we did in creation. No one said anything to us, but still, how many wonders did we not create? However, back then there was no one, nor anyone, who could offer us even just a sigh as a pretext for our love, and as a refuge in which to place our creative wonders. But now there are those who can tell us, and give us the multiplicity of their little acts, even the natural ones, since nature is ours too, and we can use anything to form the greatest wonders in the creature. Our love feels greater delight. Our power is more exalted in doing our greatest wonders inside the little circle of the act of the creature, rather than outside of it. After all, these are the usual pretext of our love, which, in order to give, goes in search of the occasion, to be able to say, She gave to me, I gave to her. It is true that it is little, but she has kept nothing for herself. Therefore, it is just that I give everything to her, even myself. Fiat. January 7th, 1938. One who lives in the divine volition forms the refuge for the life of the divine will. The I love you as refreshment for the divine love. How God feels obliged toward the soul who lives in his will. My poor mind was flowing in the divine volition, and I could see the yearnings, the desires, the contentment it feels in seeing the creature wanting to live life together with it, to love it with its own love, and if she doesn't know how to do anything else, to gather into her soul its yearning, its ardent longing, and say to it, I am here with you. I will never leave you alone, to calm your restlessness of love and make you happy. But while I was thinking this, my dear Jesus, my sweet life, visiting my little soul, and his love was so great that it seemed that his heart wanted to explode, told me, Dearest daughter of mine, heaven, earth, and all creatures are completely wrapped, and as though enclosed with the intensity of our love. Our volition flows with such rapidity in each fiber, in each atom, in each instant, with such speed and fullness, that nothing is left out, not even a breath, which is not life of our will. And our love loves ardently, but with such ardor as to feel the need of someone who would bring a little refreshment to the intensity of its love. Now, do you want to know what can give a relief to the intensity, totality, and fullness of our love? The I love you of the creature. And as many more times as she says it, the more refreshments does she bring to us. This I love you enters into our flames. It breaks them for us. It lifts them and soothes them. And as the sweetest refreshment, she says, I love you. I love you. You love because you want love, and I am here to love you. This I love you makes its way inside our intensity and forms in it its own little place, the little space in which to put its I love you. Therefore, the I love you of the creature is the resting place for our own, our refreshment, the soothing of our love, so that it may not become too delirious. My daughter, to love and not to be loved is like wanting to obstruct the course of our love, constraining it into ourselves, and making us feel all the pain and hardness of our unrequited love. And therefore, we keep looking for one who loves us. Her I love you is so sweet and refreshing for us that who knows what we would give her in order to have it. See, then, in one who lives in our will, we find the refuge for our life, and we do nothing other than exchange our lives continuously. She gives us hers, and we give her ours. In this exchange of life, we find the one who receives ours and gives us hers. We can give something of our own and do whatever we want. We feel like the God that we are. So the living in our will serves us as refuge, as the theater for our works, as refreshment for our love, and the requital of all creation. There is nothing we do not find in this creature. Therefore we love her so much that we feel obliged to give her whatever she wants. And for each additional act she does in our will, she binds us more and adds more chains. And do you know what she gives to us to make us feel obliged? Our own life, our works, our love, and our very will. And do you think this is little? What she gives us is so exuberant that if it wasn't for the power we possess, by which we can do anything, we would lack the means to repay her. But our love, which never lets itself be won and surpassed by the love of the creature, keeps looking for new devices, inventing new stratagems, to the point of giving back our life time and time again, to fulfill its obligation toward its beloved creature. And in its emphasis of love, it says, "How happy I am that you live in my will! You are my joy and my happiness. So much so that I feel as though obliged to give you the air to breathe. And because I feel obliged, I breathe together with you. I bring you the sun and its light in my own hands. But I do not leave you alone. I remain with you. So there is nothing, water, fire, food, and everything else, that I do not bring to you with my own hands, because I feel obliged, and I want to remain with you to see how you take it. I want to do everything myself. And if, as she takes, she says to me, 'I take everything in your will, because I love you. I want to love you and glorify you with your own will.' Oh, who can tell you then of the refreshments she gives me? And she tries to repay me, and I let her. But then I come back with my surprises of love. Therefore, I recommend to you, make me content by living always heart to heart and synchronized with my will, and we will be happy and content, you and I. Fiat. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 35, Part 10. Fiat.